Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Laura, for those of you that do not know, and today's video is of course going to be another romance recommendations video. I feel like I've been kind of making my way through all of the tropes that you guys have been requesting for me to talk about. I just did bad girl, good boy, and good girl, bad boy books. So today I'm going to do a much requested trope, which I feel like I have never seen somebody make like a full out video about this trope. However, it's one of my favorites and apparently a lot of yours, and that is books where one of the characters is famous, so one of them in like the relationship basically. And so I have a list for you guys of books that have this trope. Most of them are adult romance books, but I have a few YA ones just to throw in there. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you're into these like trope inspired recommendations videos, but other than that, let's just get started. So the first book I'm going to be talking about is a series, and the book is called Royally Screwed by Emma Chase. This is a book where the girl is kind of a nobody and the guy happens to be royalty. He's basically like in line to become the king of his country, I'm pretty sure. I'm not even sure what the country is. I think it's made up. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it's a made-up country. And one day he's in New York for like business or something, and this girl works at her dad's coffee shop, and they're kind of about to go under. They don't really have a ton of money. The one thing that keeps them alive is like their pies that they have at the shop. But one day this man comes into the shop, and a lot of people would recognize him from his face because he's very famous even in America, but she has no idea who he is, and they end up getting into like a pretty big tiff at the coffee shop, and he's like obsessed with her from the get-go and just wants to spend time with her after that one interaction, but she's like really unsure about it, especially after finding out that he comes from royalty, and the story kind of progresses from there. I really love this story. It has the aspect of like forbidden love because of course if you're a royal in this world, you can't marry somebody that's from outside of the country or not royal from a different family, so she's like totally off limits for him in the aspects of his country. And so it has that forbidden aspect, but it also has the aspect of him being famous and her kind of being a nobody. And I just love this story so much. I don't know what it is. I really love royalty books. They're one of my favorites. So if you're into that trope as well, I think you'll really like this one. And yeah, next on my list is The Baller by V. Keelan. This of course has to do with a famous football player, and the girl happens to be like a sports journalist. And so the basic gist of this book is he's this kind of like douchey guy, football player, whatever, and she's a sports journalist who happens to go into the locker rooms after the games to interview a bunch of the guys, and she interviews this one particular guy. This guy thinks he's like the funniest person in the world and decides to drop his towel every time she's interviewing him in hopes of distracting her and making her look bad, but also kind of trying to get a rise out of her because he kind of has this crush on her. But she's very serious about what she does and doesn't want to let that affect her, but obviously that's really distracting. And the story kind of progresses from there. I believe he asks her out. But this story also has like a whole nother plot in the background going on. It's kind of told in alternate chapters, and if you guys don't know, V. Keelan's one of my all-time favorite authors, and she always has like really interesting plot twists and things going on that you don't realize till the end of the book, and just her stories keep you super enticed and they're super interesting. So if you haven't read anything from her and you're interested in this trope, I really recommend The Baller. I think it's great. You guys didn't think I could go a whole recommendations video without bringing up Abby Glines, right? So my next rec is for Breathe by Abby Glines, which is the first book in the Seabreeze series, and this book has to do with a girl whose mother finds herself pregnant. It's always just been her and her mother growing up, and for the most part she almost looks after her mom and has always seen herself as being like the older one, even though she's a senior in high school and I believe 17 years old. But when her mother becomes pregnant, she's unable to work at her job when she gets into the later trimesters of her pregnancy, and so this girl is like, we need to do something, I need to do something. So she decides to step up and take her mother's place at her job, which she doesn't really know what it is, but she knows that she works in this huge mansion off of the coast of Seabreeze, Alabama. So she finds herself there, and the owner of this house is none other than Jack Stone, who's like a huge superstar, especially amongst teens. He's like super popular. By facial recognition, she really doesn't even know who he is. And so when she finds herself in the mansion and sees him for the first time, he assumes that she's like some crazy fan that snuck in and she's genuinely just there to do work. But he really likes her because of that. and so they kind of find themselves in this friendship and maybe more, and it progresses from there. I love this book so much. You guys know I love the whole series, but this one is definitely fun, especially if you're into like the whole rock star dating a normal girl trope, so I highly recommend it. Next book on my list is Until It Fades by K.A. Tucker. This is a story that I love so much, and it has to do with a girl who again is a single mom, kind of a reoccurring theme. She works at this diner. She's tried to distance herself from her past life because she had a lot of issues growing up in high school. A lot of rumors were spread about her, so she kind of just lives her own life now, single mom, doing her thing. But one night driving home from work, she passes this car on the side of the road that has just been in a severe accident, and she notices two guys in the front. One she can't even fathom retrieving from the car. He's completely stuck, unfortunately, but the other one she thinks she has a chance at saving, so she tries to drag him out of the car. Mind you, he's this huge bulky guy, but somehow she manages to do it, and she does it right before the car literally bursts into flames, basically saving this guy's life. Turns out this guy is a really famous hockey player, and while she doesn't want her name in the news at all, she doesn't want anybody to know that she's the one that saved him, he's desperate to figure out who she is because he wants to thank her for saving his life. And so the story kind of goes from there. It's such a sweet story. I love the whole thing. It's just like really perfect, and I love books with hockey players. I don't know what it is, it's just kind of like my thing. So I highly recommend it for that aspect. But he's like this super sweet guy, and she's just like completely lost, doesn't know what to do. So I really love this one, highly recommend it. I think the writing is really great and it goes by super quick, so really great one. Next book on my list is also a part of a series, and I guess all four of the books in this series could be considered for this trope, and that is the Stage Dive series, the first book being Lick by Kylie Scott. And this is a book about four guys who are in a band together. The first one has to do with one of the guitar players, I think, and he finds himself waking up in a bed in Vegas with this girl who he remembers everything that happens, and he's like totally okay with it, but she wakes up and she's like, what the hell? Realizes that they got married the night before, doesn't remember a lick of it, literally. And so they're like, what do we do from here? She's like really freaked out about it, but he's kind of not. So they decide to kind of just see what happens. And of course the book follows what happens. But yeah, the whole series follows one of the other bandmates. My favorite book is book 3 about the lead singer. So you could read the whole series, you could skip around if you're not interested in all of them, but this series is super fun and again has like the rock star real world girl aspect, so highly recommend it. The next book on my list is called Real by Katie Evans. This is actually also a series, but this is the first book, and it has to do with a famous boxer and a girl who goes on to be his physical therapist who kind of travels with him through all of his boxing meets. This guy is like super broody and just like hates the world. Boxing is the only thing that really keeps him going until this girl comes in, and she's kind of like a no bullshit girl, like just has her priorities straight, isn't really trying anything, but she happens to get like a soft spot for him. He has a lot of issues, a lot of like mental health issues, lots of things going on with him that she has yet to discover, but being with him on this tour, she learns a little bit more about him, and they kind of have these struggles that they go through together, and it's a really sweet romance. I love the ending of it. I love a good bad boy turning sweet for one girl kind of trope, so that's definitely this book. And again, you have the aspect of him being famous, her not, so highly recommend. Love this one. And again, you could read the whole series. I believe the books follow like them, and then there's books about other couples as well, so read whatever you want, but I really love the first book. And then I have kind of like a duology recommendation, but it's also a spin-off series, so let me explain really quick. If you guys know Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, they have a book called Him and a follow-up book called Us about these two guy hockey players, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. I'm obsessed with it. So these two books actually have a spin-off series about two other guys that are like hockey mates with one of the guys from the first books, and the series is called Wags. The first book is called Good Boy, and these two books just follow two hockey players and their different relationships. The first one happens to be with one of the sisters of the characters from the first book, and then the second one is completely separate. But I highly recommend these, again, if you're into like the hockey trope. A lot of times people ask me for recommendations for things similar to the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, so this is kind of very similar, and again is by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen, so it has a similar feel. So I highly recommend it. I feel like it's very underrated in the realm of Elle Kennedy, so if you haven't read it yet, you don't have to read the first 2 books from the separate series, but I highly recommend them. I think they're wonderful. So yes, lots of books to read and find out about. The last 3 books I'm recommending are my 3 YA picks. The first one is called The Heartbreakers by Ali Novak. This book follows a girl who is in a set of triplets. She has a brother and a sister. Her sister has cancer and is really struggling. One of the only things that makes her sister happy is this band that she's obsessed with called The Heartbreakers. And so for their birthday, this main character and her brother decide to go to a Heartbreakers signing in hopes of getting a CD signed for their sister to surprise her with. On the way to this signing, they stop at a Starbucks and she goes inside and ends up striking up a conversation with this guy, and it goes really well and she's really excited about it. She turns up to the signing and it turns out the guy is one of the singers from the Heartbreakers, of course. And so from there she ends up kind of forming this business relationship with the guy. Their conversation in Starbucks kind of pertained to her photography because I think she had her camera with her, and so I think she ends up becoming like their photographer, and it kind of goes from there. But I really love this story. It was originally on Wattpad, if you've ever heard of it, so that might be why it's familiar if it is. But I really love the first book. I think it's a series, but the first book is the one that I love personally, so I really recommend it. It is only YA, but I still think it's really great. You guys heard me earlier say that I can't resist a good book with royals in it, so you know I have to recommend The Selection by Kira Cass. This is of course a series. It's so fantastic, one of my all-time favorites. This is about a girl, America. She lives in this country that's basically Canada and America combined. It takes place in the future basically, where America now has a casting system and royals, and she's in a really low caste. But the prince of the country is looking for somebody to link up with, and so they basically have what is called a selection, where they find random girls across the country to come stay at the castle in a chance to like win his heart. It's basically The Bachelor. Like, if you think about it, it's literally The Bachelor. And so this girl has a boyfriend. She doesn't even want to go, but her mother forces her because I believe you get like money if you win, so to speak, and all that stuff. And obviously she gets selected to go, and when she gets there, she's really not interested in Prince Maxon. She's like, I have a boyfriend, like I don't want to be here. So she basically makes an alliance with him, saying like, let's be friends so I can stay here and like eat your food because it's like amazing and I have nothing back at home, and I'll like keep you updated on what goes behind the scenes with the girls. And he agrees, and it kind of goes from there. Obviously like she's gonna end up falling for him, but it's so good. I love this series. It's literally one of my all-time favorites, and you guys know I don't read a ton of YA anymore, but like this is a tried and true for me, so I highly recommend it. Okay, and the last book on my list is a romance mixed with kind of a thriller aspect, and it's called Follow Me Back by A.V. Gager, I don't know. This was also originally on Wattpad. So this story follows a girl who basically has like a stan account for this famous celebrity. She's obsessed with him. She has like a Twitter dedicated to him, and she writes fan fiction for him. So she's like one of the bigger like accounts on Twitter supporting this guy. She also has agoraphobia, so she stays inside all day. She has a therapist that comes to her house, and you don't really know why at the beginning of the story, but you kind of find out as the story progresses. But basically she ends up talking to this person over the internet who kind of has like a hate account for the person that she loves, and they end up DMing and kind of becoming friends, weirdly enough. But it turns out that the person that has the hate account is actually the famous celebrity who she's obsessed with. And basically it's like he doesn't realize why people like him so much because he puts out stupid music that he doesn't care about, and he's like, why do people even support me? So he makes his account. But also it's told in alternating chapters, where one of them is like a trial and one of them is 5 months previous, or whatever, how many months previous of her talking to this guy online. Sorry if that sounds so confusing. I hope that makes any sense at all. But basically it's her talking to this guy online. She doesn't realize it's him, but she's also scared to leave the house, so she like doesn't ever go anywhere. She can't really go meet him. And then also there's like a trial going on that has to do with them, and I don't want to explain anymore because it's kind of crazy and the ending is shocking. I know this probably sounds like super all over the place. I have a whole book talk on the book if you want to check that out, but yeah, basically that's the premise. He's famous, she's not, so there you go. Okay, so those are all of my recommendations for books where one of them is famous. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's any other tropes that you would like a whole recommendations video for. I have a few coming up, like sports romances and age gap romances. So let me know if there's other tropes that you want videos for. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure to, again, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed and subscribe to my channel down below. I'm going to be posting a lot more recommendations in the future for you guys. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon for my next video. Bye.